I remember his exact words. As we celebrate closing the Robertson account, our biggest deal this quarter at 3.6 million, I'd like to recognize my son, Weston, for his outstanding work in securing this client. The conference room erupted in applause. Weston stood up, straightened his designer tie, and nodded like some conquering hero. My boss, Callum, caught my eye across the table and actually winked at me. Winked, like we shared some private joke. 8 months. 8 months of my life I dedicated to that account. Late nights researching their industry. Weekends spent drafting proposals. The 4 times I flew to meet them in person, paying for my own upgraded seats so I wouldn't look exhausted at the meetings. The hundreds of texts and calls with their CFO, who had trust issues from previous vendors. All those careful relationship-building moments. All mine. And in 10 seconds, it was handed to someone who hadn't attended a single meeting. I sat there, feeling my face burn, while maintaining my professional smile. My hands were shaking under the table. When everyone turned to congratulate Weston, I saw Callum mouth to him, "Family first." That's when I knew. That's when I decided. I was the first to walk over and shake Weston's hand. "Congratulations," I said, my voice steady despite the scream building inside me. "You must be thrilled." And this is what kills me. He looked me straight in the eyes and said, "Hard work pays off, right, Nadine?" Sorry, I should introduce myself. I'm Nadine Voss, 32 years old. Back then, I was a senior account executive at a prestigious financial services firm, the kind people kill to get into. I'd spent 4 years building my reputation there, always being the first in and last out. My colleagues called me the closer because I never let a potential client slip away. Until that day, I believed that merit mattered. I believed in the system. I wasn't always this cynical. Growing up in a small town with parents who worked themselves to the bone, I was taught that hard work equals success. Period. My dad would say, "Natty, in America, you get what you earn." He died believing that. I wish he could have lived long enough to see what really happens. Before I go deep into this, if you're really interested in knowing what happened next, could you please give this video a like? Also subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon to get notified when we upload new videos like these. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Because honestly, I'm curious if this kind of corporate betrayal happens everywhere or if I was just special. After the meeting, I went to the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face. Marielle from HR found me there, staring at my reflection. "That was messed up," she whispered, checking under the stalls to make sure we were alone. "Everyone knows you landed Robertson." I dried my hands slowly. Apparently not everyone. "Are you going to say something?" she asked. What could I say? Callum Thorne wasn't just my boss. He was a founding partner. His family name was on the building. He'd been featured in business magazines as a visionary leader. Meanwhile, I was a girl from nowhere, with student loans and a rented apartment. "I'm going to do something," I said finally. "But not what you think." When I got back to my desk, I saw an email from accounting about commission structures. The Robertson deal was set to pay out roughly $216,000 in commission over the next year. That kind of money could have changed my life. But now, it would be going to Weston Thorne, a man who already drove a car worth more than I made in an entire year. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing Callum's wink, hearing Weston's smug voice. Hard work pays off. I got up at 3 a.m. and made a decision. I wasn't going to file a complaint. I wasn't going to quit dramatically. I was going to play the long game. The next morning, I sent Weston an email. "Congrats again on the Robertson account. If you need any background information before your first check-in with them, I'd be happy to brief you." He replied within minutes, "Thanks, but I've got it covered. Dad's bringing me up to speed." Of course he was, because Callum knew every detail about the client, right? Wrong. He'd attended exactly one preliminary meeting and left halfway through to take a call. What he didn't know was that Robertson had specific communication preferences, reporting requirements, and a CEO with a memory like a steel trap. They expected whoever managed their account to know their business inside and out. I decided to be the perfect team player. I smiled in meetings. I congratulated Weston publicly. I even bought him a plant for his office with a card that read, "To New Beginnings." Meanwhile, I started keeping detailed records. Every email, every meeting note, every contribution I made that went unacknowledged. I recorded conversations on my phone when legal in our state. I took screenshots. I built a case, piece by piece. Callum began inviting me to more high-level meetings, not because he valued me, but because he needed my brain while grooming his son for my position. I accepted every invitation graciously. 3 weeks after the Robertson announcement, the first cracks appeared. Weston missed a deliverable deadline because he was at a golf tournament. The client called me directly since I'd been their contact during the acquisition phase. "Nadine," said Terrence Robertson himself. "I thought Weston was handling our account, but he's not responding, and we need these projections for our board meeting tomorrow." I could have thrown Weston under the bus right then. Instead, I said, "He's actually in an important strategy session right now. Let me pull those numbers for you immediately." I stayed until midnight creating the report Weston should have prepared weeks earlier. When I finished, I emailed it to Weston first, writing, "Thought you might need this for the Robertsons. Feel free to send it over to them." He replied at 11 o'clock in the morning the next day, "Already handled it, but thanks." The thing is, I had embedded a tiny tracking pixel in the document. I could see it was downloaded from my email at 6:32 in the morning and sent to the client at 6:45 in the morning unchanged, with just the sender name different. He took full credit, of course. 2 months in, Weston was drowning. The Robertsons were unhappy with his response times. Other clients were complaining. But Callum kept covering for him, reassigning staff to quietly fix his mistakes while keeping Weston as the face of the accounts. I watched and waited. I volunteered to help with the quarterly business review for the Robertson account, a critical presentation where we needed to show progress against objectives. Weston agreed immediately, relieved to have someone else do the work. "Just make me look good," he joked, not realizing I was recording the conversation. I prepared an impeccable presentation but left one crucial section incomplete, the section addressing the client's most important key performance indicator. I clearly marked it with a comment, "Weston, to complete with proprietary data from client meeting on the 12th of May. The night before the presentation, I sent him the deck. All done except for the section from your private meeting with Terrence. I didn't have access to those figures." There had been no such meeting on the 12th of May. Weston had been at his girlfriend's art show opening. He had posted pictures on social media. But he didn't remember that, and he certainly hadn't had any private meetings with Terrence. At 11 o'clock that night, he called me in a panic. "What proprietary data? I don't have any special figures." I feigned confusion. "But you told the team you had exclusive metrics from Terrence. That's why Callum assigned you as lead, right? Because of your special relationship with the client?" There was a long silence. "Right," he finally said. "I'll figure it out." The next day, Weston presented the deck with made-up numbers in that section. Numbers that contradicted the Robertsons' own internal reports. Terrence interrupted the presentation. "These figures aren't accurate. Where did you get them?" Weston froze. "From our analytics team." Terrence frowned. "Your analytics team is reporting different conversion rates than our internal systems? That's concerning." Callum jumped in to smooth things over, but the damage was done. The Robertsons started asking more questions, demanding more oversight. The account wasn't lost yet, but trust was eroding. After that meeting, Callum called me into his office. "Nadine, I need you to support Weston more proactively with Robertson. They seem to respond well to you." I nodded earnestly. "Of course. Anything for the team. Should I take over some of the direct client communication?" No, he said quickly. "Weston needs to maintain the relationship. Just guide him. Behind the scenes." I smiled. "I understand. Family first, right?" His eyes narrowed slightly at my choice of words. For a moment, I thought I'd overplayed my hand. Then he relaxed. "Exactly. I knew you'd understand. That's why you're so valuable here." Valuable, but not valuable enough to earn my own commission, apparently. Over the next few months, I became Weston's shadow support. I drafted his emails, I prepared his reports, I briefed him before every client call. To the outside world, he was managing the relationship. Behind the scenes, I was doing all the work while collecting evidence of the facade. The real turning point came 4 months later. The Robertsons were growing their business and required more services. It was a $5.8 million opportunity, larger than the initial agreement. Weston was given the responsibility of developing the proposal. He came to my desk looking pale. "Nadine, I need your help with this RFP." "Happy to help," I said cheerfully. "What do you need?" "Everything," he admitted. "I don't understand half of what they're asking for." This was my moment. "I'll help on one condition." He looked surprised. I'd never negotiated before. "What condition?" "I want to be officially assigned to the account team, with my name on the org chart that goes to the client." He hesitated only briefly. "Done, I'll tell Dad." I spent 2 weeks crafting a perfect proposal. This time, my name appeared in the document as technical account advisor. Not what I deserved, but a foot in the door. More importantly, it created a paper trail connecting me officially to the account. The day before the proposal was due, I made my first real move. I called Terrence Robertson directly. "Terrence, it's Nadine Voss. I'm working with Weston on your expansion proposal." "Nadine, good to hear from you. We've missed your thoroughness." "Thank you. I'm calling because I've noticed some discrepancies in the proposal draft that's about to come your way. Nothing major, but I wanted to make sure you had the most accurate information for your board." There was a pause. "What kind of discrepancies?" "The implementation timeline seems optimistic, and some of the customization costs aren't fully transparent." Another pause. "I appreciate your candor. Should I be concerned?" "I believe in our company's ability to serve you. I just believe you deserve complete transparency about what that entails. Would you be willing to send me your notes separately for comparison?" And there it was, the opening I needed. "I'd be happy to provide a supplementary document. Just to be clear, this is for your eyes only. I'm not trying to undermine my colleague. Of course, this stays between us." I sent Terrence a detailed breakdown of realistic timelines, potential challenges, and accurate costs. I also included a brief section titled Account History that subtly highlighted my role in the original deal without directly claiming credit. The next day, Weston submitted the official proposal. 2 hours later, Terrence called Callum directly. "We need to talk about this proposal and your account management structure." I couldn't hear Callum's side of the conversation, but I could see him through his glass office wall. His face darkened. He looked directly at me, then turned his chair away. The following morning, Callum called an emergency department meeting. When we all gathered in the conference room, Terrence Robertson was there with his CFO. "Before we begin," Terrence said, "I want to address something important. Our company values transparency and accountability. When we chose your firm, we did so because of the trust established during our onboarding process. Since then, we've noticed a disconnect between the promises made and the delivery structure." Callum tried to interject, but Terrence held up his hand. "We've received conflicting information about timelines, capabilities, and even basic account facts. Yesterday, we received your proposal alongside supplementary notes that painted a very different picture of what to expect." All eyes turned to Weston, who looked confused. "As a result," Terrence continued, "we're requesting a restructuring of our account team effective immediately. We want Nadine Voss to lead our account as primary contact." The room went silent. Callum's face reddened. "Mr. Robertson, while we value your input, we determine our staffing internally based on family connections rather than merit," Terrence interrupted, "because that's how it appears from our side. Our contract includes a clause about appropriate account staffing. We're invoking it now. Either Ms. Voss leads our account, or we'll need to review our relationship entirely." The $3.6 million already signed, combined with the potential $5.8 million expansion, made this a $9.4 million conversation. Even Callum couldn't ignore that. He forced a smile. "Of course. We want you to have complete confidence in your team. We can certainly discuss adjustments." "Not adjustments," Terrence said firmly. "A complete reassignment, and we'll need confirmation by end of day." After the Robertsons left, Callum exploded. Not at Weston, at me. What did you do? He hissed, slamming the conference room door. I maintained perfect composure. I provided accurate information to our client, as I've always done. You went behind our backs? Did I? Or did I do exactly what you asked? Support the account behind the scenes? The only difference is the client found out who was actually doing the work. Weston looked between us, finally understanding. You set me up. I smiled at him. Hard work pays off, right? Callum stepped closer to me, lowering his voice. You think you've won? I built this company. One client doesn't change anything. I can make your life here impossible. You already did that when you stole my commission, I replied calmly. But there's something you should know before you make threats. I pulled out my phone and played a recording Weston, asking me to make him look good, followed by Callum instructing me to support his son behind the scenes. I have dozens of these, plus emails, plus testimony from clients about who actually did the work. If you fire me or retaliate, these go to the board, the press, and our top 10 clients. The color drained from Callum's face. You wouldn't dare. Wouldn't I? What exactly do I have to lose? You already took the only thing that mattered. Credit for my work and the compensation that came with it. Family first, right? Well, I'm looking out for my family now. Me. For a moment, I thought Callum might actually lunge at me. His hands were balled into fists, and I could see a vein throbbing in his temple. Weston just looked stunned, like a child who'd discovered Santa wasn't real. This conversation isn't over, Callum finally said, his voice deadly quiet. He stormed out, Weston trailing behind him like a scolded puppy. I sat alone in that conference room for a long time, my heart hammering in my chest. I had just confronted the most powerful man in the company. The adrenaline made my hands shake, but for the first time in months, I felt something close to peace. The truth was finally out. By the end of the day, I received an email from HR. I was officially assigned as lead on the Robertson account, effective immediately. The email was copied to Terrence and his team. No mention of commission restructuring, of course. That battle was still to come. When I got home that night, I poured myself a glass of wine and called my best friend, Imara. You did what? She practically screamed when I told her. Nadine, they're going to destroy you. Maybe, I admitted, but they'll have to do it in the open now. She was quiet for a moment. Do you have a backup plan if this goes south? I did. I'd been quietly documenting everything for months, building relationships with other clients, and updating my resume. 3 competing firms had already hinted they'd be interested if I ever wanted to make a move, but I wasn't ready to leave. Not until I'd finished what I started. I'm covered, I told her. One way or another. The next few weeks were tense is an understatement. Callum avoided direct contact with me, communicating only through terse emails or intermediaries. Weston was reassigned to smaller accounts and kept his distance. Other executives in the company seemed unsure how to treat me. Was I now powerful or marked for destruction? No one knew, so most people simply avoided me altogether. Except Marielle from HR. She stopped by my desk one afternoon with coffee. The partners had a closed-door meeting about you yesterday, she said softly. 3 hours. My stomach tightened. And? They're split. Callum wants you gone, obviously. But Vihan and Eliza think firing you would be legally risky given what happened with Robertson. Plus, they're impressed you managed to save and expand the account. Vihan Shah and Eliza Winters were the other founding partners. I'd always had decent relationships with them, but they operated in different divisions, and we rarely crossed paths. What's your guess? I asked her. Marielle sipped her coffee. They'll try to manage you out slowly. Make your life difficult until you quit voluntarily. Less messy that way. She was right. The very next day, my office was needed for a visiting executive, and I was moved to a desk in the open area, right by the noisy break room. My assistant was reassigned to more pressing needs. My parking space, a small perk I'd earned after 3 years, was reallocated for client use. Petty stuff, designed to humiliate and frustrate me into leaving. I smiled through all of it. Meanwhile, I was excelling with the Robertson account. Terrence and his team were thrilled with the new arrangement. We expanded their services, streamlined their reporting, and found cost savings their previous account manager, Weston, had overlooked. The relationship flourished. 2 months after the confrontation, quarterly commission statements were released. I immediately checked mine, and as I suspected, the Robertson commission was still allocated to Weston. I printed the statement and walked directly to Eliza Winter's office. Her assistant tried to stop me, but I smiled and said, "It's about the Robertson account. She'll want to hear this." I walked right past him. Eliza looked up from her computer, surprised but not displeased to see me. Unlike Callum, she had built her reputation on substance rather than style. "Nadine, this is unexpected." I placed the commission statement on her desk. "I thought you should be aware of a potential legal issue. Despite being officially recognized as the account lead for Robertson at the client's explicit request, the commission is still being directed to Weston Thorne." She frowned, picking up the paper. "This is an administrative oversight, surely." "Is it? Because I've submitted 3 correction requests to finance, all of which have been denied with Callum's electronic signature." That got her attention. "Have you spoken to Callum about this directly?" "He refuses to meet with me, but I have the email trail." I handed her a folder containing all my documentation. "I'm coming to you as a founding partner because I respect the firm and would prefer to resolve this internally." The unspoken alternative hung in the air between us. She studied me for a long moment. "You're not what I expected, Nadine." "What did you expect?" "Callum described you as emotional, unprofessional, someone who was trying to undermine his son out of jealousy." I couldn't help but laugh. "Do I seem emotional or unprofessional to you?" A small smile crossed her face. "Quite the contrary. You seem exceptionally well prepared." She tapped the folder. "Leave this with me. And Nadine, thank you for coming to me directly." 3 days later, my commission structure was reviewed and updated to reflect current account responsibilities. The back commissions would be paid out over the next 3 pay periods. It wasn't a complete victory. They prorated it from when I officially took over. Not from the beginning, but it was a significant win. More importantly, the power dynamic was shifting. Callum couldn't simply erase me anymore. Other account executives who had suffered similar treatment began coming to me privately, sharing their stories. Junior staff started asking me to mentor them. Clients requested me specifically for new projects. Callum watched all of this with growing resentment. I could feel his eyes on me in meetings, calculating, planning. I knew he wasn't finished. Men like him don't surrender power easily. His next move came about a month later. One of my largest clients, the Viziri Group, suddenly demanded a different account manager, claiming communication issues. I was blindsided. We'd had an excellent relationship. When I called my contact there, Daria, she was evasive. "It's nothing personal, Nadine. We just felt we needed different energy." That didn't sound like Daria at all. "Did someone from our firm speak with you about this?" I asked directly. A pause. "I'm not comfortable discussing that." That was answer enough. I thanked her professionally and ended the call. Then I did something I'd never done before. I drove to the Viziri offices unannounced. The receptionist recognized me and waved me through. I found Daria in the conference room, looking surprised to see me. "Nadine, I didn't know we had a meeting." "We don't," I said, closing the door behind me. "I just needed 5 minutes of honesty between friends." She hesitated, then gestured for me to sit. "What's going on?" "Callum Thorne contacted you, didn't he? What did he say about me?" Daria looked uncomfortable. "Nadine, this puts me in an awkward position." "I know, and I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. But my career is on the line, and I deserve to know what I'm being accused of." She sighed. "He called our CEO directly, said you were becoming distracted with internal politics, that clients were complaining about your availability and attention to detail. He suggested we might be better served by a more focused team member." My blood boiled, but I kept my expression neutral. "And you believed him?" "Of course not. That's why I was so vague on the phone. I thought you might be recording the conversation for some internal battle. The truth is, our CEO owes Callum a favor from way back. This was him repaying it." I nodded slowly. "Thank you for your honesty. And just so you know, every report I've ever sent you has been accurate and on time." Every call scheduled has been kept. I know that, she said softly. We all do. As I was leaving, she called after me. Nadine, be careful. Men like Callum, they play by different rules. She was right. Callum was escalating, using his extensive network to undermine me professionally. If he succeeded in stripping away my clients, he could justify demoting or firing me regardless of what happened with Robertson. I needed to change the game. That night, I called Terrence Robertson at home. He picked up on the second ring. Nadine, is everything all right with the account? The account is perfect, I assured him. This is more personal. I need your advice as someone who understands corporate dynamics. I explained the situation, how Callum was now actively working to undermine me with other clients after failing to intimidate me into leaving. Terrence listened carefully. When I finished, he asked one question. What do you want out of this, Nadine? Really want? I had to think about that. Did I want Callum's job? Revenge? Public vindication? I want what I've earned, I said finally. Recognition for my work, fair compensation, and I want to make sure what happened to me doesn't happen to others. He said. Not money or power for their own sake, then. No, those things matter, but they're means to an end. What I really want is justice. He was quiet for a moment. There's an industry leadership conference next month. The theme is integrity in business. I'm on the planning committee, and we're still looking for panel speakers. Would you be interested? I immediately understood what he was offering. A platform. I would be honored, I said. But Callum. Leave Callum to me, Terrence interrupted. Just prepare your thoughts on ethical leadership and accountability. Be ready to speak your truth. Over the next few weeks, I prepared meticulously for the panel while continuing to excel with my remaining clients. I didn't confront Callum about the Viziri Group or other accounts he was trying to pull away from me. Let him think he was winning. The day of the conference arrived. I wore my most powerful suit navy blue with subtle pinstripes, nothing flashy but undeniably authoritative. When I arrived at the venue, I checked the program. The panel was called Mentorship, Accountability, and Ethics, Building Tomorrow's Leaders. And there, listed as the moderator, was Callum Thorne. My heart dropped. Was this Terrence's idea of helping? Putting me directly under Callum's control on stage? I found Terrence at the morning networking session. Did you know? I demanded quietly. He smiled. Of course. Callum's been moderating this panel for 3 years. He considers it his personal platform. That's why it's perfect. Perfect for what? For him to publicly humiliate me? Nadine, Terrence said calmly, you've spent months collecting evidence and building your case. Today, you'll have an audience of 500 industry leaders. Use it. I understood then. This wasn't a trap, it was an opportunity, but only if I was brave enough to take it. The panel began at 2 p.m. 4 speakers, including me, with Callum moderating. He barely acknowledged me during the introductions, focusing on the other panelists, all men, all at least 15 years my senior. The first hour was standard industry talk, the challenges of developing talent, maintaining ethical standards in competitive environments, the importance of mentorship. Callum directed most questions to the other panelists, giving me only the most basic topics to address. Then came the audience Q&A. A woman in the third row raised her hand. This question is for Ms. Voss, she said. As a younger woman in a leadership role, have you encountered obstacles related to recognition or advancement that your male colleagues haven't? And how have you overcome them? Callum tried to redirect. Perhaps we should focus on more universal challenges. No, I interrupted. It's a fair question, and one that deserves an honest answer. The room went completely still. The truth is, I began, I have faced obstacles that had nothing to do with my performance and everything to do with who I am and who I'm not. Not from the industry as a whole, but from specific leaders who view talent as a threat rather than an asset. I could feel Callum tensing beside me. Recently, I closed a multi-million-dollar deal after 8 months of intensive work. At the celebration, my direct supervisor announced his son would receive credit for the deal. Family first, he said. thinking no one would challenge him. Murmurs spread through the audience. I considered my options: quit in protest, file a complaint that would likely go nowhere. Instead, I chose to document everything and build such undeniable value that even our client noticed the disconnect. They eventually demanded I be reinstated as their lead contact. Callum cleared his throat. We should move to the next question. I'm not quite finished, I said pleasantly, because this isn't just my story. It's happening throughout our industry. Talented people, especially women and minorities, having their work attributed to others, being passed over for promotions they've earned, watching less qualified colleagues advance because of connections rather than contributions. The woman who asked the question was nodding vigorously. So to answer you directly, yes, I've faced these obstacles, and I've overcome them by refusing to be silent, by building allies who value integrity, by documenting everything, and by being willing to speak uncomfortable truths in rooms exactly like this one. The silence that followed was deafening. Then someone started to applaud. Others joined in until the entire room was clapping. I glanced at Callum. His face was a mask of barely controlled fury. When the applause died down, he leaned into his microphone. While Ms. Voss's perspective is certainly passionate, it represents an isolated viewpoint that— Actually, interrupted a voice from the back of the room, I've had a similar experience. A woman stood up, then another, then a young man near the front. For the next 15 minutes, people shared their stories of having credit stolen, of watching less qualified colleagues promoted above them, of the subtle and not so subtle ways merit was undermined by nepotism and cronyism. Callum tried repeatedly to regain control of the panel, but it had transformed into something else entirely, a public reckoning. Finally, Terrence Robertson himself stood up. As someone who runs a large organization, I've been complicit at times by not looking closely enough at how decisions are made. After hearing these stories, especially Ms. Voss's, which I can personally verify, I'm committing today to implementing blind performance reviews and structured advancement paths in my company. Who will join me? Hands went up across the room. Cell phones came out as people began sharing on social media. The hashtag, earned not given, started trending before the panel even ended. Afterward, I was surrounded by attendees wanting to connect, share their stories, or offer me positions at their companies. Journalists asked for interviews. Callum had vanished immediately after the panel concluded. The next morning, I arrived at the office to find Eliza Winters waiting at my desk. That was quite a performance yesterday, she said. It wasn't a performance. It was the truth. She nodded. I know. That's why the board called an emergency meeting last night. My stomach dropped. And? Callum has been placed on administrative leave pending a full review of management practices. Weston has resigned, effective immediately. And we'd like you to head a new task force on advancement policies and compensation equity. I stared at her, speechless. Unless, she continued, you'd prefer to consider the VP of Client Relations position that just became available? 3 months later, I was sitting in my new corner office, Callum's old office, actually reviewing candidate files for my team. The internal investigation had revealed that Callum's family-first policy extended far beyond me. Dozens of employees had been affected over the years, their accomplishments attributed to relatives, fraternity brothers, or golf buddies of the senior leadership. Callum ultimately resigned rather than face termination. The official statement cited personal reasons, but everyone knew the truth. Especially after the expose in a major business magazine featuring interviews with 15 former and current employees, including me. The firm implemented a new compensation and advancement system with clear metrics and multiple reviews to prevent any single manager from controlling an employee's fate. My first act as VP was to review all accounts and commissions from the past 2 years and correct the attributions. As for the Robertson account, it's now our largest client, with a full 3-year contract renewal at increased service levels. Terrence and I meet monthly for strategy sessions that have nothing to do with the past and everything to do with building something better for the future. I won by refusing to play by the old rules, or rather, by exposing those rules to the light where everyone could see how corrupt they truly were. So if you're watching this and you're in a similar situation, where your work is being stolen, where connections matter more than contributions, know that you have more power than you realize. Document everything. Build relationships with clients who see your value. Find allies within your organization. And when the moment comes to speak your truth, do it without flinching. Oh, and if this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. I'm sharing these experiences because I know I'm not alone, and neither are you. Drop a comment below with your own workplace story or just to let me know where you're watching from. Every like and subscription helps this message reach someone who might desperately need to hear it today. Remember, your work has value, your voice has power, and no one can take either away unless you let them.